And so, like I said, this workshop is being recorded. Many of our other workshops have been recorded, and you can access them on our YouTube channel, which I will talk about during our presentation today. If you would like, please submit questions in the chat. I'm happy to have people come off mute and express their question. I can also answer them through the chat or verbally here. Just as we start, if you could just describe kind of who you are. Are you a faculty? Are you a staff member? Are you alumni? Are you undergraduate student, graduate student? If you feel comfortable, just share in the chat who you are and what you're doing. Are you working on an idea? Are you here just to learn about this? Is this something you saw? It helped me to kind of know who our audience is as I go through our presentation today. But as you share a little bit in the chat, so Ventures, like I said, is the organization that I am part of. And we exist for innovators in either sciences or the humanities who are passionate about their research and would like a low-risk opportunity to transform it into a product or service to benefit the public. We are part of the university, and we help researchers transform their innovations into something that can be accessed outside the campus. The process of transforming research into a product or service is often referred to as commercialization, and it plays a critical role in allowing research that takes place in a lab on campus to make an impact in the world. An example that we like to share is that if a researcher identifies a cure for cancer and publishes it in a journal, that article can't actually cure any cancer. The research needs to be translated into a product, specifically whatever that cure is, that is then marketed and sold and utilized within a medical setting in order for the innovation to turn into a real thing. And so we at Ventures exist to support researchers and the university in accomplishing that goal. We want the knowledge that is generated on campus to be able to, again, go out into the world, become a product, become a service, become something that is used and widely disseminated around the world. A great resource for everybody on this call to start off with is the innovate.umd.edu. Like I said, we are Ventures. We are one of many entrepreneurship and innovation centers on campus. And each of these centers has a slightly different purpose and generally a slightly different target audience. Like I said, we serve faculty, staff, and then graduate students. Undergraduate students have the Ding and Limon Center. But then there are other, there's the shell, the hatchery, the shell. There's like a bunch of things that exist out there to help people who are interested in entrepreneurship and innovation and provide all types of resources from funding to mentorship to just collaborating with like-minded people. And innovate.umd.edu, I'll drop it in the chat right now, is a great kind of entry website that allows you to see all of these different resources, what they do, where they exist, and how they can help you. If you scroll down on innovate.umd.edu, it takes you to this section. You kind of click on, are you an investor, industry, are you faculty or student? Or you can just click the View All Resources tab. And again, just to highlight how many resources there are out there, if you click on this View All Resources tab, there are 8 pages of results of just the resources available to innovators here on campus. But like I said, today we're specifically talking to faculty and then graduate and postgraduate students and those who are interested in starting a startup and a business. And so I will be, and thank you, Lauren, for sharing, PhD candidate, perfect, you're in the right place. And so I will share the types of resources that if there's any undergraduate students on the call, I'll share resources that you can use. If you're an alumni or a community member, I'll share resources that you can use. Some of these resources will only be available to faculty and staff, but I'll try and kind of explain how they can be used by these different populations. Again, for those of you who joined us late, feel free to share in the chat who you are. Are you faculty, staff, student, alumni, community member? And what you're hoping to do and what you're hoping to get out of today, and allow me to tailor my remarks a little bit. So the reason why our organization, Ventures, exists, and the reason why we specifically help faculty, staff, and graduate students has to do with intellectual property. And let's just briefly talk about what intellectual property is. Intellectual property refers to creations of the mind, such as inventions, literary and artistic works, designs, symbols, names, and images used in commerce. And this is foundational to the university. The primary mission of universities is to advance, preserve, and disseminate knowledge. And so intellectual property is something that we create and then advance, preserve, and disseminate. Like that is what a college does and what the University of Maryland does. And for students at the University of Maryland, students, undergraduate students in particular, come here as, again, customers of the university and participate in that process. But faculty, staff, and graduate students are part of the, again, advance, preserve, and disseminating process, and employees and part of the university. And so inventions and research that are developed on the campus by faculty, staff, and graduate students are jointly shared by those students and the university. And so both of us have responsibilities in, again, advancing, preserving, and disseminating that knowledge. And so Ventures exists to help with that process. If you're an undergraduate student and you have a startup or an innovation that you're working on, you are free to come to our office and use the resources that we have, but you aren't, again, it's not a shared enterprise with us. And so there are many other centers and offices designed for undergraduate students, but we exist, again, to help faculty, staff, and graduate students in sharing this knowledge. And there are a whole variety of IP protections to help protect that intellectual property. And we'll talk about what that protection means. I think a lot of times as employees of the university, we want to create knowledge and then share it. But the reason that protection is important is just to kind of maintain the sanctity of that knowledge. And so patents are one way to do that, trademarks, service mark, copyrights. There's a whole variety of ways of IP protection that exist. And just to make sure that that knowledge isn't, without those protections, one, it can eliminate a profit motive, which is something that's really important for helping share and spread that knowledge. But I think even more important, it can lead to that knowledge being corrupted or being used in a way that isn't appropriate to what maybe it was designed to do. And I'm not going to get too deep into that, but I do want to kind of share an example of one of the people we've worked with. Dr. Jim Fay won an NSF grant collaborating with researchers from other institutions to develop the Connected Mathematics Core Plus curriculum. And so again, developing knowledge, developed it here on campus, tested it, got great results, and so came to our office and was able to secure a copyright, so one form of IP protection. Once that happened, we were then able to go out and license this copyright to, I believe it was to Pearson, just a textbook company, which then, because they sell textbooks, was able to get this curriculum into classrooms all over the United States, right? And so if Dr. Fay didn't have, or let's say he first didn't have the Ventures office, he would have gotten this copyright and then he would have had to go evangelize that product to schools all across the United States and figure out how to print it and get it placed in those classrooms. But because he was able to get the copyright and because we were then able to license it to this textbook producer who does the work of creating textbooks and making sure that gets into classrooms, it was able to reach a much wider audience than Dr. Fay would have been able to reach on his own. And the cool part about Dr. Fay's story is that this brought back a lot of money to the university that then went into funding more than a dozen PhD and postdoc positions within the College of Education. The inventors of products also received some of that money, and Dr. Fay donated all of his shares back into creating more positions. And so by creating this knowledge that created value, that created positive outcomes for mathematics students across the country, Dr. Fay also created an asset for the university that allowed the university to do more research and to create more knowledge to go out into the world. And so because of this, because the knowledge created here serves the world and again can help serve the university as well, there's over $1 million in funding opportunities for university developed IP that is looking to go into the market to be commercialized. Some of this funding comes from university-based programs, some of it comes from federal programs through the NSF, some of it comes from state programs. Again, all these entities, the state, the government, have vested interest in this knowledge being shared and spread, and creating jobs, but also creating products and services that help people. And so they have invested in these funding opportunities to help get products out of, again, just a lab or just research and turning it into something real. And so the second thing that I'm going to share that's going to be really helpful is startupguide.umd.edu. Together with partners across campus, we created this startup guide, and it's a tool that can help you to navigate the ecosystem and resources in the order that makes the most sense for, again, translating something that's an innovation, an invention, some research that you've done into a product or service. The suggested path is divided into 4 stages: feasibility assessment, startup formation, startup acceleration, and sustainable company. And then within those 4 stages, we've got a variety of different steps. And I'm just going to pull up the website right here to show you all. One sec. So here it is, startupguide.umd.edu, and I'll put that in the chat. And if you go to the website, you'll see we've got these flowcharts, and each stage has links and an explanation of what it is. Again, this is what we're going to go through on the rest of today's presentation. But for feasibility assessment to startup formation, each one of these has steps, and it's really easy to navigate. And I'm going to talk through it today, but would share that as a resource for you to review after listening and participating today. I do want to emphasize that this isn't, it's not like you have to follow these steps in this order, and I'm going to share some examples that followed them in this order, some examples that didn't follow the steps in this order. Each startup is going to have its own unique journey from idea stage to startup success, and that's going to depend on what your needs are and what resources you have. But we have outlined what we believe is the best journey for the average startup, average university startup to take. And so we'll kind of walk through that and talk through what each of these steps are, why they're in the place that they are, and how you should take advantage of those resources. So let's start with feasibility assessment. I think this is the most important part of the startup journey. Is actually determining if your idea has a feasible pathway to be turned into a product or service. And what we find, I think the most unfortunate thing that happens is if somebody has an invention or some research that they think has a lot of potential and they want to pursue this commercialization pathway, they want to turn it into a startup, but they don't ever do the feasibility assessment all the way through. And just for years, this idea just remains an idea with a lot of potential, but whose potential has never been tested. And this is unfortunate for 2 reasons. First, if it does actually have positive potential, it means that they're just sitting there and they're not able to progress because they're unable to get additional funding or investors because they haven't actually proved that anybody wants this idea. And so we've got the idea stuck here on campus and not actually being turned into a product or service. The other problem, and I think the reason why lots of people fail at this, is that they're afraid that if they actually go out and test the feasibility of this idea, that they're going to be told, no, there isn't any commercialization potential for this. There isn't a startup market out there, and failure is a scary thing, and I totally understand that. However, being told no is really important at the very beginning of this process, and rather than spending years of your research waiting to turn this into something, being told no, there isn't actually a market for this can save you a lot of time and money and effort. And the process of feasibility assessment hopefully gets you that no in a productive way and says, no, there isn't a market for this, but we're actually looking into this thing and could, guide your efforts in another direction. And so again, feasibility assessment can be the scariest part, but I also think one of the most important parts, and that's why we've got a lot of resources around it. So for feasibility assessment, the first step is, first kind of 3 steps are all focused around this creating an IP management plan. And so you want to tell our office about your innovation. You can do that through this website, go.umd.edu/discloseip. You'll submit a disclosure to our office, which just describes your invention. And then you're going to meet with an innovation manager who's going to sit down and try and understand to their best of their ability what it is that you have come up with, what your invention is, what your research entails. And their job is to then take that and research the market, see what else is out there, look at the literature, see what else has been patented or what other IP protections exist in this space, and to come back with an idea of, hey, is this something that we should pursue IP protection for? Is it something that is possible to pursue IP protection for? If we do pursue this IP protection, is it marketable? And then if it is, they'll go through the IP filings, and they'll be able to help manage that protection for you. Again, paying for a patent, doing all this research, maintaining a patent, the costs run into the tens of thousands of dollars. And so it's something that again, our office handles. It's part of our mission. It's part of our budget to do this. But it's also a really important step. And so we, our innovation managers, that's why they look at this and determine, hey, if it's patentable, then is there a commercial value for that patent? Because our goal is and our office is funded by the returns that we get on being able to license and option these technologies. And so we are checking and making sure that it is feasible and it makes sense. That's the very first level of this feasibility assessment is disclosing the IP, making sure you can protect it. They'll talk with you through about, are you able to publish? When can you publish without risking your IP protection? All that type of stuff. But disclosing is the first step. Then you continue the feasibility assessment, and our journey goes here through TEDCO MII, but I'm actually going to focus on this customer discovery portion first because I think it's really important. And so the first stage of customer discovery, the first resource available for customer discovery is something that is called ICOR. This is a program run by the National Science Foundation. So you've disclosed your technology, even before we've determined, hey, are we going to protect it? You can go through ICOR, especially if we've determined, hey, this is IP protectable, we're going to patent it or copyright it or do something with it. You can definitely join ICOR. It's a 3-week virtual program where and the curriculum and the mentors and the teachers are fantastic. It's one of the best entrepreneurial educational programs I've ever participated in. But it's focused completely on doing customer discovery. And so what you do is you learn how to go out and talk to people who are in the market that your innovation exists in. And so I'm going to go back to our chat here. Lauren shared she's a PhD candidate. She didn't share what she was studying, but let's say Lauren is researching some sort of chemical used in cleaning, right? And she's got a very specific knowledge of her product and her product area. The purpose of ICOR is to learn about what is the market for that product. And so they would teach you how to go out and identify what companies are in your target market, how to identify what people at those companies are using products like your product or products that your product would potentially replace or improve. And then you interview 20 of those people about what they do. You don't talk about your invention hardly at all, like you shouldn't. This isn't you marketing, this is you listening. And so you go out and you learn, what are they using their products for? Where are their current products falling short? What do they wish their products could do that they don't do? How much budget do they have to pursue these improvements? What type of workarounds are they using right now? And all of that informs whether what you have is actually going to be beneficial to the people who would be using it or purchasing it or recommending that it is purchased. And so it provides you all of this really important information. I worked with a team once that participated in ICOR and went out and talked to 20 people about a reactor that improved the yield on algae that's grown inside of a bioreactor. And after talking to 20 people, they came back and they told me nobody wants this. And so our conclusion is we need to do a better job explaining it. And I was like, no, that's totally wrong, right? If nobody wants it, nobody wants it. So we need to pivot and we need to do something a little bit different to find what the market wants. ICOR is a great way to talk to the market. This 3-week program, it takes place, there's rolling cohorts. You can find out more at icor.umd.edu. It usually takes place for 3 hours on a Friday, and so it's, again, 3 Fridays in a row. They also have cohorts that meet on Wednesdays. That's the regional program. If you go through the regional program and you get some good feedback and there's potential for it, you can also go through the national program. You can also just start straight up at the national program. The application is a little bit more involved. If you're accepted into National ICOR, you receive $50,000 in funding that can go towards supporting your work in doing this customer discovery. And for National, you do the same thing as regional, except you interview 100 people. And so it's just, again, you collect all this really good feedback because that helps you to be much more successful. And that is just established in innovation and entrepreneurship spaces. If you've gone through I-Corps, you're much more likely to get some of the future grants that I'm talking about, specifically SBIR grants. And so it's just a really, really helpful program. Like I said, I-Corps is not required, and talking to 20 people can be intimidating and does take time and effort. And so we actually find that lots of people don't go through I-Corps, but it's why I wanted to start by talking about it. This is, I think, the single best thing that you can do if you have an idea that you are looking to commercialize. The program is excellent, and it's incredibly helpful. Okay, now taking a step back before engaging in customer discovery, one of the other programs that we have here, and just real quick on I-Corps, if you're an undergraduate student, I-Corps is open to anybody. It doesn't have to be university-based IP. You don't even have to be a UMD student. It's open to community members. We are the hub of the Mid-Atlantic region, and so there are faculty, students, people from other universities participating. It's a very open program that's accessible and available to a lot of different people. If you want to go to national I-Corps, it does have to be university-based IP, again, because NSF has this incentive to try and turn university technologies into products and services. But for the regional program, that is open to almost anybody. The next resource is the TEDCO MII program. There are 2 grants associated with TEDCO MII that I'm going to talk about today. The first is the Technology Validation, or Phase 1 grant. TEDCO is a Maryland state-created body. It's not actually part of the state, but it's a fund created by the state, again, with this goal to incentivize innovation and economic development. And they do that by, again, this TEDCO MII, by supporting research coming out of university campuses. And so the Phase 1 Technology Validation grant is a $130,000 grant. There's no overhead. It's a 9-month project to validate your technology, still in this like, hey, like I have a technology, I think there's a market for it. You develop a business plan, a commercialization plan as part of your application. Actually not as part of like the grant itself, but you can, you apply for the grant and you propose, what do I need to continue to test to see if my technology, invention, innovation has commercialization value. Again, it's a grant that can cover salaries, equipment, materials, outside consultants and experts. It can be used for a variety of different things. We have site miners dedicated to our campus to help with applicants to this program. They each have different areas of expertise and again, are very acquainted with the application process. They defend your application to the reviewers. There are application deadlines quarterly, and so it's the 15th of every quarter. So we just had one on January 15th. Our next application deadline will be April 15th. Again, if you are interested in this, disclose your technology, the innovation, talk with your innovation manager. If there's interest in a startup or commercialization, then they'll connect you with our office and we'll start the process of connecting you with a site miner. And again, if you're interested in any of these programs, I'll be here afterwards to talk with you as well. But the site miners help you, guide you through. They are all experienced entrepreneurs, and so they have a commercialization background, and so they are experienced both in the kind of business element of it, but also specifically this program and the application process. It's a good time to mention we also have entrepreneurs in residence available as mentors. You can go to this website and meet with any of these at any point in time. I bring them up here just because we're talking about mentors, but they aren't associated with the TEDCO program. Our entrepreneurs are, again, free to meet with anyone associated with the university to talk at any level of your startup, even if it's just idea phase. Again, an excellent resource for you to use. And so as you engage in customer discovery, as you begin your application for this grant money, as you continue forming your management team, the other thing you can do is develop your business skills, right? Many of you come from a research background, and so, you're like, what does it mean to develop a business plan? How do I market this? How do I create finances? And that's why our workshop series exists. Today, I'm walking you through the process of doing this, but we have different guests come in and tell you how to do taxes, how to form a company, how to look up how to apply for an SBR grant, how to explore regulatory issues. And so all of those are available on our YouTube channel, but then also available through our newsletter where we announce those things. Lauren says, do you need to be working in the state of Maryland for the TEDCO MII? Lauren, your technology needs to be based on technology coming out of a Maryland. There are specific Maryland universities that they work with, University of Maryland College Park, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, Johns Hopkins. And so you have to, the technology has to be coming out of one of those universities. Yeah, I believe University of Maryland, Baltimore. So I can check for you. I can, at the end of this, I can drop something in the chat so you can, a link in the chat, or if you just Google TEDCO MII, you'll be able to see who all they work with. Hopefully that answers that question for you. As you can see, oops. Oh yeah, here's some more of our workshops, different things that we do. And then again, engage in more customer discovery. You should be engaging in customer discovery throughout this process. You're always listening to customers and what the market is asking of your technology and your innovation. This could be when you participate in National I-Core, but you can also be engaging in customer discovery informally. So our first case study today is Hazel Analytics. Hazel Analytics started as research by Dr. Ginger Jin. She was researching health inspection ratings across different jurisdictions. So, you know, when you go to a restaurant, it has like hopefully an A grade, right? Like, don't go to restaurants with D grades or F grades. But some jurisdictions do letter grades. Some do 1 to 100 scales. Some do different scales of different numbers. And so there's actually no way to compare the health grades of restaurants across different jurisdictions. And so Dr. Jin's research started with how do you compare health ratings and who publishes these health ratings, right? If you get a failing grade, you're probably less likely to publish it. And so a very like econ-focused area of research. She started working with Dr. Ben Betterson, who created an algorithm to normalize these ratings across different jurisdictions. And like they were really enjoying their research and their funding was running out. They wanted to do more. And so they participated in MII. And they got $115,000. Again, it's $130,000 now, but in 2014 it was $115,000. They got $115,000 to start identifying, hey, is there a commercial use case for this technology? And they found that if they could create a big enough national database, there would be lots of people interested in being able to access that information. And so they recruited an MBA student who took their idea through I-Core, talked to a lot of these companies, came up with a business plan, applied for MII Phase 3, which is the company formation grant, which I'll talk about here in a minute. And that was all the funding they took. They didn't need any venture capital. They didn't need any loans. Like it was MII, I-Core, and the second MII phase. And that's all that they needed. They created this national database. It got picked up by chain restaurants that needed, again, a way to normalize their health ratings across their different chains in different states and different jurisdictions. Then Yelp became one of their biggest customers who used their database to publish health and safety ratings to their service. And in 2023, they were acquired by Ecolab, who now uses that in the products and services that Ecolab offers to food health and safety. But again, I think just an excellent example of how research that was one small part of what the end product was able to grow and continue to become bigger and become more meaningful and turn into a product that was really valuable and useful through the use of these MII customer discovery and technology feasibility assessment programs. Okay. Once you've completed feasibility assessment, the next stage is startup formation. And startup formation is actually, you've discovered that, hey, this is feasible. There is potential here. There are people who are saying that they'll buy it from me. This is how much they'll pay. And so it makes sense to continue investing my time and effort into this, or to get someone else to invest their time and effort into this. And so you're going to actually start the company. To register your company, again, there's some legal framework associated with that, and so we encourage you to engage in legal counsel. We can't provide that for you, but we do have a list of legal counsel that other startups who have come through our office have used. If you are a researcher or a student, you do need to manage your conflict of interest, right? And again, we walk you through that. Your innovation manager will help you to do that. But where I'm going to start with here is, again, the second stage of MII company formation. I'm going to start by talking about this because you can apply for this and then complete these other steps while you are applying for this. But the company formation grant, as opposed to the technology validation grant, which was $130,000, the company formation grant is $300,000 for the specific purpose of getting a company off the ground. And as opposed to a grant, this stage is $300,000. It's a promissory note, which is just a loan. I know that sometimes that can be, again, a little intimidating to hear, oh, there's a loan, we have to pay it back. The interest rates are market rates, I think it's like 9% or something like that. But it's also a loan to your company. And so if the company goes nowhere, then it was a grant. Like you got $300,000, nothing happens, there's no payback associated. However, if your company generates revenue and becomes profitable, then you are able to pay back that loan. And that was an important first loan for you to get things off the ground. Just like the phase 1, it's a 9-month project to support the advancement of the technology and really kind of get the ball rolling on customer acquisition and then starting to receive your follow-up investments. This is just the last 4 years with the MAI program. You can see that we've grown from 11 applications a year to 20 applications a year. That our University of Maryland College Park companies have gotten almost $2 million in funding, I guess $2.6 million last year, and that our success rate has generally been in the kind of 50 to 75 range. And I think that's a good kind of target to remember. If you work with your site miner, you listen to the advice that they're giving you, they know what they're doing, they know how to make sure that you are presenting an application that is strong and able to be funded. If you do not receive funding, you're graded and you're able to apply again. And so it is, sometimes it takes 1 or 2 applications before you're able to get that funding. But then as you continue through startup formation and continue forming your management team, some of the other big things I wanted to highlight on here were applying for an SBIR grant, which is a federal grant. These can come in all different shapes and sizes. They're offered by a variety of different federal agencies. And so if your product would provide a benefit to a specific agency, we have a battery company that's working with the Department of Defense who are interested in using the battery because it's a solid state battery, and so it's less likely to be flammable, which again, you can see could be very beneficial to people who are working in combat areas. But an SBIR grant is a grant provided by that federal agency. Much like the MII grant, it's a grant, there's a specific monetary amount associated with it. But the trade-off is that, and again, this can be considered a trade-off or a benefit, that federal agency is one of your first customers. And so they get access to your product when your product comes to market because it would specifically help them. And so it's both a way to get a grant and secure a customer at the same time. And there's a variety of SBIR grants available. Again, if you go through I-Corps, that improves your SBIR application. You can apply for this before MI company formation funding or after. But once you've started your company, then you would come back and you would license the IP from the university, right? So when you met with the innovation manager, we created an IP protection plan for it. And so at this point, you would license the innovation from the university. If you have remained involved in your startup, then you would be licensing from us and you would also have an equity share in it, but it means that the university also has an equity share in the technology or your startup. We've got startup license terms that are very friendly to the startup and that help startups get off the ground and be able to use this technology. If you are no longer involved in your startup, then what this license does is that the money that comes from this license from a startup commercializing your technology flows back to the university and to you as an inventor. And so I think right now, 50% of any money, again, these are general terms, but flows to the inventors. 50% flows to the university, and some of that is split between the department of the inventor and our office to fund the work that we do. And this is standard practice to universities across the United States. The kind of splits are very different. Maryland has a very generous split for inventors, sorry. But that's kind of what is all involved at that licensing step. Once you've licensed it, you develop your business model, find a working space, develop a prototype, and then apply for MIPS. And so now when we're talking about startups, right, before this kind of forming your startup, it's an idea and it's something that you have and you're here at the university, and the various resources that I'm presenting here are to help people at the university level. Now that you've actually started your startup and you're a company that exists outside the university, this is why you've had to kind of manage conflict of interest, and you've licensed the technology from us. And so now there are programs like MIPS, which is the Maryland Industrial Partnership. I don't know what the S stands for. System maybe, but the MIPS program allows Maryland companies to partner with a research lab here on campus and provides matching funds. And so, for example, if you are a startup, you provide 10%, and so your company would provide 10% to a lab here on campus, and the university would provide 90% of a grant to further research on the campus. And so it's a way that your startup would be able to fund a lab here on the university, continuing to work on the technology that is an integral part of the company. And that's another source of funding that's available to university startups. Our next case study and success story is Dr. Ken Kao. She was actually just featured in the Maryland Magazine Winter Edition. Really cool story. Dr. Ken Kao is associate professor in the Department of Cell Biology and Molecular Genetics, and she is a leading researcher in human aging, specifically in aging caused by syndromes like progeria. As part of her research, she found that methylene blue has anti-aging properties for human skin. And so she came to inventions. She went through the IP process. She was connected with one of our mentors, or actually she was connected with a mentor, and she went through the initial MII program. And again, this was something completely different than her research, right? She is researching this progeria syndrome, but discovered that this dye had anti-aging properties, was, getting funding to do more research into what that looked like. Specifically, it worked in skin. And so one of our mentors connected her with Jasmine El-Kordi, who was an industry professional in the skincare industry. And so they partnered together. Jasmine became the CEO. Dr. Kao became a partner. And in 2018, they got additional TEDCO funding. They did the company formation and got $300,000 to launch Blueline and M Blue Labs, which turned this methylene blue into skincare products. So their first product was Blueline Night and Day Cream. Became really popular with consumers, and since then they've launched eye cream, daily moisturizer, Night Plus anti-aging complex. I think they have 12 different products now. Still a 2-employee operation, but they continue to bring in revenue and are profitable. They were featured by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce as one of the top 100 small businesses in the United States, and they're still doing great work. Again, Dr. Kao continues to be surprised that she works in the skincare market. But she's able to continue her research here on campus in progeria, and also able to promote this service and product that came out of her lab to generate revenue and help people outside of her lab as well. And so just revisiting this slide from the very beginning, we have 50,000 available through I-Core. Oh, and I guess maybe that reminds me, I did want to point out in Dr. Kao's story, she did not do I-Core, right? Like, she did the 2 MII programs, the 2 TEDCO programs, but not the I-Core program, right? So everybody's path looks a little bit different, and none's better than the other. Like, there are things there to help, and you can again, use the path in different ways. But anyways, back to this funding slide. There's 50,000 available for National I-Core. We have the Medical Development Device Fund. There's $450, I need to update this, it's $430,000 available through the Maryland Innovation Initiative, MII. The MIPS partnership can do $90,000 to $180,000. The Discovery Fund, Maryland Momentum Fund, and Chesapeake Bay Seed Capital Fund are all funds that are targeted at businesses that fit specific requirements. The Discovery Fund is, I believe, for businesses based in PG County. Chesapeake Bay Seed Capital Fund is for businesses that can be shown to have a benefit on the Chesapeake Bay. And so originally that was like very narrow and had to be kind of like Bay focused, but now is much broader, and any company that has like an positive environmental impact or can be considered a green company is available for this funding. And so there's just a lot of funding sources targeted at different companies, again, because there's a lot of incentive to get technologies that will you think about the Chesapeake Bay Seed Capital Fund, right? A technology that will have a positive environmental impact on the Chesapeake Bay. Great, you came up with it in a lab, let's turn it into a product. Let's get it disseminated out within a broader market. And so the last 2 stages of the startup guide are startup acceleration and sustainable company. I'm gonna put them up here on the screen. these are areas where through your work with us and through your work with the mentors, through engaging with our workshops and programs, you'll be able to complete these things, but we have less specific programs designed around these things because at this point in time, your company now exists external outside of the university. Whereas during the first two stages, you're still part of the university and or still interacting closely with the university. And so we're able to connect you and network you with other funders. You're able to continue to use our mentors and connect with them. If you're finding office space or manufacturing space, we have incubators here on campus for different types of startups. But again, this is stuff that we will continue to help you with, but the programs are a little less defined, and we tap into a variety of different buckets to make this happen. So to kind of wrap up our presentation today, and I want to leave time for questions at the end, just highlighting some of our success stories. I think this is one that I like to highlight because it is a big success story. IonQ is one of the leaders in ion computing, or I guess quantum computing. They IPO'd in 2021. They're based here in College Park, based on research that came out of the University of Maryland College Park. But they didn't do any of the programs that I talked with you about. They disclosed their technology, they used some of our mentors, but they didn't do MII, they didn't do I-Core. Quantum computing is still it's big. Investors believe in it, but it's still also very theoretical in the application and use cases. And so the programs that we were offering didn't make sense for it, and that's totally fine. I just want to put it up there to highlight that the journey that you take is different, and we can help you through whatever that journey is. At the same time, I wanted to highlight Dr. Srini Raghavan and Dr. Lingbing Hu. Both of these professors, if you've ever heard of the 80-20 rule, there's a kind of common occurrence that we see where 80% of progress or work is done by 20% of people. That's the same with the inventions and disclosures at a university. 80% of the disclosures come from 20% of the researchers. And I just wanted to highlight these two because they figured out how to use those steps in this program. Dr. Hu has, I believe, something like 100 and something disclosures through us, and almost a dozen different companies have been founded based on his technologies. Dr. Srini has the same, not quite as prolific, but he has 4 different companies based on his technologies. And again, it's because they've discovered that if you go through this program, use the resources that are available, figure out how to get one of your doctoral students, one of your graduate students to kind of lead it through I-Core and then MII and then MII phase 3. And you can quickly figure out the ideas and the products that are going to work and the ideas and the products that aren't, and then therefore are more likely to get at least 1 or 2 or a handful of them to market. Dr. Hu especially, his first invention was his baby, and he really wanted to lead it from cradle to grave and be the CEO, and it was just taking forever in addition to all the research and responsibilities he had on campus. And when he finally learned that, hey, I don't need to be as intimately involved and I can allow a graduate student to lead this out and still be on the decision-making and the founding team, all of a sudden it progressed much more quickly and allowed him to continue doing research that turned into different ideas. InventWood is a wood in which the ligand has been removed and compressed, and so it is as strong as steel, but it's still made out of wood, and so is much cheaper. They just opened their first manufacturing facility in Frederick and are preparing a variety of different products to be introduced to the market. Dr. Srini with Grip Boost, there will actually be players in the Super Bowl this weekend to use Grip Boost gloves. It's a sticky substance that remains on the glove that you don't have to apply, and so they use it to help catch the football. But his research has all been around kind of gelatinous substances, and so MedCure is a company that uses, again, a derivative of this to help doctors, surgeons specifically, patch up wounds. And so you can see how the same research can lead to different commercial products, and both of them have figured out really how to go in, identify the markets, identify where the needs are, and help create products and services that serve those different markets. So next steps for you, review startupguide.umd.edu. Like I said, you can access this website on your own. The next regional I-Core you can check out at icore.umd.edu. You can sign up to talk to our inventors. If you register for the Startup Fundamentals workshops, you can continue to learn all these skills, and in our newsletters, we announce different opportunities. If you have IP that you need to submit, go to go.umd.edu/disclose IP, and I'll put that in the chat when I'm done talking, to begin the disclosure process. Get connected with an innovation manager who can help talk you through this process and then connect you with us. And then also apply for MII funding if that's something that you're interested in. But that's all from my presentation today. If you've got questions, please feel free to stick around. Happy to answer questions to the chat or allow people to come off mute and talk. But just wanted to reiterate, like, we exist to help these become products. It's really exciting to see something go from a research paper to an actual product that you can hold in your hand, and that's out there doing stuff. And so we are invested in your research's success and want to work with you as partners to help get it out there, help connect you again to these resources that exist for that. And so, yeah, thanks for coming and participating today. I'll end the recording. Stop the share, but I'll end the recording.